Hi, everybody, and welcome back. And allow me to introduce our next speaker, Vincent Dwyer. Vincent is an energy and estate principal. For over 25 years, Vincent has been at the forefront of developments in the energy sector, from energy privatisation and the development of energy markets to the rapid deployment of renewable energy. Vincent has worked on many of the Asia-Pacific region's most significant and innovative transactions in the energy sector. His experience spans governments, utilities, pension funds and startups, and he is known for his mastery on energy issues and commercially astuteness and commitment to getting the deal done. Please welcome Vincent Dwyer, presenting for Energy Estate and Res Australia, the Fitzroy Renewable Energy Zone. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you, Nicole. I'll just share my screen now. Look, thanks for this opportunity to present on Central Queensland Power and one of the variety of projects that we have been developed in Central Queensland. Just as a little bit of background about Central Queensland Power. So, CQP is a joint venture between Res Australia, which is Res is a very well-known global developer of renewable energy, and ourselves, Energy Estate, very much at this stage Australia-New Zealand focused developer across wind, solar, onshore, offshore, wind, solar, pumped storage hydro, energy storage, and hydrogen. The background to CQP really is a fundamental belief in the importance of Gladstone as an industrial ecosystem. So, the strength of the industrial workforce and industrial opportunity, the importance of decarbonising heavy industry in and around Gladstone for its long-term sustainability, really steps on what is one of the world's most significant energy export ports. So as we stepped back probably 4 years ago, looking at what parts of Australia were those that were most important to be part of the decarbonisation, because Gladstone is just such a natural fit. Not only is there the gradual retirement of the transition of the coal sector, but there's obviously LNG, and there's the whole green economy that's very focused in and around Gladstone, whether it's from the heavy industry that's there, or whether it's from the new industry that's coming through from the hydrogen. So it's a great industrial port. There's strong current load in Gladstone. There's terrific future energy load in Gladstone. It's got a complex grid system around Gladstone, and I think that is one of the very practical challenges, certainly that PowerLink and AEMO and the major users are very conscious of. And that's one of the issues that we're conscious of in trying to pull together a series of projects that can collectively provide new green power for that load that needs to be decarbonized. But it's more important. We're big believers in local community. We're big believers in the industrial workforce, ensuring there are longer-term stable jobs in the region, rather than going through the boom-bust cycle that various areas around the country have been through. We're also conscious of the history of Gladstone, the activity that occurred on Curtis Island over a fairly limited time period, and so on. And we're acutely conscious to make sure that both some of the positive and negative lessons coming out of the development of the LNG in Gladstone are properly addressed as we lean into the next growth industry, which is renewables in and around Fitzroy Banana Reses, or Central Queensland Res, as the state government. So with all that in mind, Res and ourselves, Central Queensland Power, how do we design a new energy solution for the region, reflecting grid issues, reflecting the importance of longer-term job creation and maintenance? So we've got a variety of sites various of which are identified on this slide, to the north, to the south, to the west of Gladstone, being able to then bring that power into Gladstone from all directions to help meet this terrifically growing load in Gladstone. I think that's the whole rationale behind Central Queensland Power, is supporting that decarbonisation in a way that is the lowest cost possible, not only for the electrons themselves, but for the capital of building out the grid. The other benefit of having multiple projects in one area is that we're able to look to the supply chain and go, okay, this is not a one project. This is a series of projects that will be built over 3, 4, 5 years that will enable suppliers to gear up with a reasonable degree of confidence that projects will fall together. It'll enable, hopefully, the bringing in of manufacturing of the supply chain into Gladstone, or at least into Queensland, to ensure that there's a long enough pipeline of opportunity, not just a one. So that's a really important message that we're trying to get. This is about a long pipeline of opportunity and enables the region to get in behind not just our projects, but other projects that others have put up in the region, and have a reasonable degree of confidence from a training point of view, from an employment point of view, from the supply chain, whether it's the secondary. So that's the rationale as to why we've done something like that. What I wanted to do today is to be a little bit more practical and talk a bit more specifically about, firstly, our probably lead project, Mole Creek Wind Farm, which is just northwest of Stanley, which is about 400 minutes. We'll talk about that, and then I want to go on and talk about more a case study of where we, as the partners in CPP, have been very focused on local supply chains, to give you a sense of the opportunity that we think is coming down the pipe, without wanting to overpromise anything right now, obviously, because we're still going through the development cycle, but to give you a sense of what we see as the opportunity for Gladstone and for the supply chain to these projects.
Excuse me, Vincent.
Yeah.
As you continue, could you move a little bit closer to your microphone? We seem to be getting better audio when you're closer to your microphone.
Sure. That means that's great. Hopefully this will be
much better. Thank you.
Okay, so Mole Creek. So as I said, just northwest of Stanwell. It's currently planned to be around 400 megawatts of wind and a couple of hundred megawatts of solar. It's a good wind location. It's got a strong grid around it. We're looking at going into probably the Stanwell substation, or looking at a variety of connection options. We're well down the development pathway of this. We've done a lot of the on-site work that needs to be done in that earlier development phase. We've got views of turbine layouts, all those practical things that go into the development of a wind farm. And we're now starting to look forward to the sort of procurement. We're just initiating that procurement phase at an early stage as we build into the last 12 to 18 months or so of the development cycle. And that means a deeper engagement on the grid with Powerlink, and having a deeper engagement with the grid means you've got to have a deeper understanding of the very specific technical requirements of the equipment you want to install. So we're talking to turbine manufacturers and so on, and that will have a sort of a flow-on effect over time as it reaches down into the broader supply chain in the region. So this is a quick snapshot of where we're at. We've done topographical flyovers, all those sorts of things. We've had wind monitoring on site for quite a while now. So we're really rolling now into the planning pathway starting to look at the connections into the grid in a very detailed way rather than a very high-level way, which we have done historically. And that will then, in the next 6 to 8 months, move into a more, very detailed, geotech assessments and all those sorts of things. So this will hopefully give you a little bit of a sense of the timetable as is currently scheduled. A lot of work has been done to date, which is great and gives us increasing confidence, good degree of confidence in the quality of the project. So with that in mind, rather than just sort of give you an academic, first is more an academic assessment of what are the general opportunities that will become available, and here's a list of the sorts of solar, and I'll go on next to a list of the sorts of requirements for the wind development. And I think various people, as you scroll through that, I don't need to go through all the items, but you'll see various people see areas that are relevant to them. Those are all on the ground skills and requirements that are necessary. So that's a Gladstone Rocky sort of supply chain. There will then be more sort of strategic commercial engagements out of Brisbane as well, whether that's on the for equity or for debt or for other service providers who may be based in Brisbane, where they're not based in the region. So similar sorts of skills for wind. Obviously, it's a slightly different level of complexity on wind versus solar, but a lot of commonality of balance of plant, of operational issues, of site securing issues, and logistics and so on. We're still working through the logistics supply chain. We're in discussions with the ports about, port access. How does that logistics work? I think it's really important, certainly from our perspective, to ensure that there's strong collaboration amongst all of the developers coming into the region to ensure that, we support the region, that we look at the logistical infrastructure as well as the people, and make sure that we coordinate what is going to be a really big investment into the region in the renewable sector generally. Now, whether that's across hydrogen or wind or solar or pump storage or batteries or whatever it happens to, or transmission, that coordination of the workforce is really important, because we don't want to get into bottlenecks from a logistics point of view as we sort of roll through from the late development cycle in towards the construction cycle of these projects. So again, good cooperation, fantastic engagement from Gladstone Port, from Mackay, great engagement at the technical, at the training level in Gladstone and in Brisbane, really good support politically in the region and out of Brisbane. So it's been a really positive development cycle. As BZE Beyond Zero Emissions have spent a lot of time building up their views on these renewable energy industrial precincts, which is, to be honest, is an idea that we've been very strongly advocating for 3 or 4 years now, and have worked very closely with BZE in formulating what these renewable energy industrial precincts are all about. It's really about finding locations where we can support decarbonised industry, but also trying to cluster, for want of a better expression, all those renewable energy supply chain opportunities so that we can coordinate on a regional basis, the huge amount of work that's got to happen amongst all of us over the next few years. So big believers in what BZE are doing on the industrial precincts, and very keen to continue to support that as part of the engagement with Rocky and Gladstone and Biloela and so on. So I wanted to do just a fairly quick case study, if I can, and this is just, and I'll just do this over a couple of minutes because I don't want it to overrun too long, but this is a case study from a project that RES Australia have developed. It's Victoria. RES have a really terrific global engagement on local supply chains, and we bring that into that experience and our own energy estates views on all of this into Gladstone. So there are various statistics about employment this was on Murra Warra, but it gives you a sense. So rather than us trying to give you forecasts of what will happen on Moa Creek and then the other ones that come through, I wanted to just give you some very practical understanding of numbers and how numbers sort of grow and contract over time. And this is sort of real live data on a similar project. So that gives you a sense of timetables, the rollout of jobs on site and investment on site and hours on site. If you then think about this in the context of CQP, we're looking to do 4 or 5 wind farms, 3 or 4 solar farms, and so you will hopefully, if we can coordinate this correctly, together with the other developers in the region, you can start to extrapolate the on-site jobs and the on-site working hours in the region. Then I just wanted to talk through very quickly. This is the sort of thing that we'll be looking locally for. Now, these are the names of the particular suppliers in and around the Murra Warra site. And we were keen just to make this real for people because it's really easy to talk about supply chains and notional issues that need to be covered. But these are really lists of the subbies that were directly engaged in Murra Warra. And that just shows how we're very committed to find, quality local supply chains to bring into the project. So again, you may not recognise any of those names, and in one sense, I sort of hope you don't, because we want to find good local small business to play a part in this. These names are obviously out of Victoria, but that's our philosophy to the build out of the project. So again, this was a little bit more of an outline breaking down to the different types of jobs and contractors and subcontractors on a regional basis rather than just on a local basis. So again, local basis, then regional, then probably, in that case, Melbourne, or in this case, Brisbane, and then broader engagement with supply chain. And then these were obviously domestic or interstate and then international. So hopefully and then this is, we've tried to map in a very rough sense where the local suppliers were compared to the location of the wind farm. Again, I'm just trying to give you a sense of the approach we adopt to, what does local mean? Local sometimes means very local, sometimes it means regional, depends on where the skill sets and the small businesses are in the local area. And that's pretty much it. I've opened a Q&A. I've hopefully kept to my 20 minutes, but very happy to talk further.
You did keep good time. Thank you, Vincent. And I do have some questions for you. Can you give us an indication on the time frame for EPC contractors for solar components to commence?
So the solar timetable sits not far. I'm just going back to the slides on the Murra Warra project specifically. The solar projects sit not far behind the wind projects. The wind projects have a longer development cycle. It's slightly more complex from a site perspective. You need longer periods of data, wind monitoring data, those sorts of things on site. So they're a little longer. But what we're keen to do is to bring the solar and the first wind to not long past, the mid to late 2023 sort of timing.
Fair enough. That sounds awesome. And how would any of the local businesses that are in the delegation today submit expressions of interest expression of interest for the services that you are still seeking to engage?
So we have a strong community engagement team for the project, and that information is on the website. I think we've got a Moa Creek specific website. We have a more general Central Queensland Power website, and there's a deep community engagement team, and we basically keep a track of people who've expressed interest. Now, again, like all these things, it's great that people express interest now, and that's wonderful. And we'll try and keep that open dialogue, keep people engaged in what the rough development cycle of the project is going, how it's all going, and give a greater clarity as we get closer towards construction. Then we can engage in a deeper way, but certainly through the website and the community engagement team.
I loved listening to you talk about the Greater Central Queensland region, because it certainly has grown into such a melting pot for industry, and no doubt that's one of the draw cards that brought the project there. Will you be holding any local briefings for supply chain?
Absolutely. So, as you'll all appreciate, over the last couple of years, it's been harder to get into Gladstone, get into Queensland for some of us, in order to have a lot of on-site briefings. We're doing community engagement at the project level, so there's neighbours and so on. That's one level of community engagement where we're already engaged with. We've had our first town hall sessions on Moa Creek. In the coming months, we'll start to have town hall sessions on various of the other projects that we're bringing through, and that's both directed at ensuring we deal with just the local community from a development perspective, and that deals with all the sorts of issues that the local neighbours and so on are conscious of, and then also at probably in Gladstone try and have more generic engagement from a CQP perspective, because I don't want what's important to us is to get the efficiencies from our perspective, as well as the longevity, people's understanding of the longevity of the opportunity. So we're keen to do that engagement both at the project level and at the sort of broader Central Queensland Power level, on site or in Gladstone.
And it's so refreshing to hear, because often as big projects come into the regional areas, they don't have that direct face-to-face engagement. So I applaud that. That's such a great initiative.
Yeah, very important. Very important.
Does the project itself have a LinkedIn page or platform that people can follow progress, or can they subscribe via the Energy Estate website? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think the best form of communication at first is through the websites. We will then have Res and Energy Estate have LinkedIn pages. We post, sort of updates that way. But we have what we try to do, because different groups have different communication purposes, in the sense that the some of the general things we put out won't give the supply chain enough information, because they're fairly general, they're fairly high profile. So I think as we get through the development cycle, we'll have a deeper supply chain focused engagement, not just sort of high level, and that will get increasing levels of detail as the projects evolve through. So I can't give you lots of supply chain detail about the wind farm way down to the south yet, because it's probably just a little bit behind Moa Creek. Moa Creek's coming into a more detailed, granular discussion of things. So that's probably over the next 6 months or so, we'll get greater levels of detail. But website is the starting point, and then getting onto the right sort of communication channels.
Wonderful. And you'll be heading to the booth now to take further questions from the delegates?
Definitely.
I'll invite you to do that. If you'd like to engage with Vincent and ask some more questions about the CQ Power Fitzroy Renewable Energy Project, please go to the Fitzroy Renewable Energy booth and take a seat, or queue to take a seat. Thank you, Vincent.
Cheers.